I think we have significantly functioned as a federal civilization at the level of a society, which effectively has both a unitary identity as well as a constituent identity, which is to say that there is a larger identity which takes within its bosom multiple identities which are parts, and both feed off each other and both enrich each other. And that has been my understanding of the literature written by stalwarts of the late 20th century and early 21st century. More than any other society, given our scale of diversity and the richness of individual identities, and still the common train of unity that runs across these diverse identities, this is perhaps the best possible culture that can lay claim to the concept of a civilization. Because ultimately, while diversity certainly characterizes a civilization, for it to be treated as a single civilization, there must be some unity. And therefore, when we speak of unity and diversity, we are characterizing and we are speaking of the character of this particular society as a civilizational society. So that is the basic mold in which we've been operating. And the reason why I think we have survived is because of our inherent spiritual strength, which is rarely given credit for. In fact, stalwarts have come to the conclusion that while the Christian concept of religion cannot be used to understand dharma, dharma is effectively what has kept this particular society alive and has kept it together as one unit, as a federated republic of sorts. Dharma's multiple manifestations is what allows local identities to thrive and survive. So, in other societies, if there is, let's say, one wave of colonization or one wave of invasion, the possibility of a domino effect is higher. This particular civilization also has multiple constituents which are held together by the concept of dharma. It is much more difficult to create a domino effect wherein you hope that if one aspect of the society falls, the rest of the society falls. That hasn't happened. There is a command and control structure on the basis
Yeah.
of which this is operated, and there is a significant degree of decentralization, which, apart from strengthening its civilizational character, has also made it significantly resilient to foreign invasions and foreign influences. And the strength of the civilization also is that wherever there is a possibility of assimilating and according other faith systems a respectable place within our society and making it part of our own tapestry, we have done so on the basis of knowledge structures, on the basis of, let's say, guna and karma, as opposed to simply using ethnocentrism or race as the basis for according status. So our emphasis on knowledge, our emphasis on traits, our emphasis on fundamental human traits as opposed to race-based traits is what I think has kept us together. Which is why it is possible for a Spanish who comes from, let's say, what we know as China today or certain parts of China to become ultimately part of Indian history. The physical features, the diversity in food habits, none of these seem to have made a difference. Therefore, as far as this particular example goes, it clearly shows that we are open, but we also expect a fair bit of blending when one wants to settle in this particular society. Which is why only those who have refused to become part of this particular society have typically created fault lines and fissures, so to speak. But otherwise, let me give perhaps a slightly more provocative example. It's not as if monotheistic faiths and Bharatiya faiths cannot live side by side, because at the end of the day, Jews also are a monotheistic community. Parsis also are a significant monotheistic community. Perhaps the earliest form of monotheism that the Middle East or the rest of Bharat is aware of. I believe that it's been possible for all of us to coexist simply because we have put faith in the importance and centrality of coexistence and harmonious existence. Certain communities have been more than happy to give up on what they believe are essential tenets of their faiths in the interest of coexistence. That has happened. So I think this is Bharatiyata, which has been imputed and imparted to even those faith systems which don't come from this land. That I believe is the reason why we have survived. Now, coming to the central question of why we qualify as a civilizational state, I don't know if we still operate as a civilizational state, because the one distinction that I strike in the book is that merely because the society happens to be a civilizational society, the state that presides over such a society doesn't become a civilizational state automatically. It has to be conscious of its civilizational character. It has to conduct itself in a manner which is consistent with its profession of being a civilizational state, which must be reflected in its policies, which means language policy, which means identity policy, all sorts of policies. Are you in a position to craft policies which continue to strengthen the identities of the parts as well as keep the whole together? That is what ultimately defines you as a civilizational state. Whether we are still a civilizational state or not, I have not come to a conclusion on that. I've just come out with the prescriptions of what qualifies as a civilizational state as far as Bharat is concerned. Whether it translates to a civilizational state or not, from the perspective of the Constitution, I'll address it only in the second book, which is book two of the Bharat trilogy.